grit and heat of the deep south to the expertly coiffed putting greens and cool ocean breezes of Monterey. From dirty hands and blue collars to pink and baby blue sports coats. From service techs and automotive enthusiasts to the titans of industry, Hellucination doesn't discriminate. SpeedKore's latest creation welcomes all. The reimagined 1968 Charger is equally impressive to a 6-year-old girl seeing the alluring weave of exposed carbon fiber for the first time, as it was to Horatio Pagani, who himself knows a thing or two about working magic with carbon fiber. It makes sense considering the man whose dream this car realized. Ralph Gilles has worked for Stellantis for 30 years and is currently their head of global design. A high-level exec who isn't afraid of wearing a jacket over a red Ferrari F40 t-shirt to deliver a speech at a black-tie dinner, who is as well known for racing a minivan in the One Lap of America and of doing the most ridiculous, epic Hellcat burnout at the Chrysler Nationals in Carlisle, as he is for championing groundbreaking designs that captured the imagination of urban youth and the respect of the establishment during a time when anything else would have likely rung the demise of Chrysler. His car collection is as eclectic as he is, and many of Ralph's recent builds are tastefully understated Italian classics from Alfa Romeo and Peugeot. But the 1968 Dodge Charger has been his dream car since he was a young boy, even before it found worldwide fame as Bo and Luke's Dirt Road Devil on the Dukes of Hazzard. Then a few years back, he got up and close and personal with SpeedKore's carbon fiber body and demon-powered 1970 Charger Evolution while at LX Springfest in Southern California. His vision evolved too, from a dream to a blueprint, then quickly from ink and paper to metal, carbon fiber, and leather. The collaboration of SpeedKore's experience in crafting hypercars cosplaying muscle cars, mixed with Ralph's iconic design touch, gave rise to an instant legend in Hellucination. Last summer, as Ralph was filling me in on the progress of his 1,200 horsepower elephant packing project, I was like, dude, when it's done, you need to take it on the Hot Rod Power Tour. He told me hell yes, and I'd have to be the co-pilot. Then texted me again a few minutes later just to solidify the plan. I'm in for real. If I say I'm going to do something, we are going to do it. So it was settled. This June, on the decidingly working-class power tour, Ralph and I took the freshly built, bespoke, one-off monster 1,400 miles from Gatlinburg, then into a detour of the Blue Ridge Mountains, on to Memphis, then to Nashville, and back to Gatlinburg. At the tour stops, Hellucination was a rock star. Most assumed the carbon fiber was a wrap, because who the hell is crazy enough to drive a real carbon fiber car on the street? The temperatures were into the triple digits, and we did not take it easy on the roads between stops. It was a successful maiden voyage. Back in Michigan, he and his wife Doris cruised Hellucination around Detroit this summer before SpeedKore scooped her up to be shown at the prestigious and exclusive The Quail, a motorsports gathering in Monterey, California. And just like its owner, it looked as at home at a luxury resort next to Pagani's collection of Huayras and Zondas as it did chilling in a NASCAR track's infield surrounded by big block Camaros and lifted pickup trucks. Through this project, I've gotten to know the team at SpeedKore and really appreciate their passion for what they do. I always say when people ask me, how are you friends with this person, or how do you know that person, or what's this person like? It's passion. You can't fake passion, and the people who get it, there's an attraction to other people who have that same kind of outlook. And I definitely got that with the guys at SpeedKore. So I'm super stoked about this interview. We talked to Bill, Corey, and Tom at SpeedKore. They go through some of the aspects of the build and how it came to fruition. I've enjoyed the time getting to know them, and this interview. Check out their work. It's really, truly incredible. I want to introduce you guys. So if you guys could each give me your name and kind of what you do, and just a quick little thing on what you guys do, what each of you does for SpeedKore.
Sure. So my name is Tom Porter, the project manager and manager of new business development for SpeedKore. So I oversee carbon fiber OEM business. I manage vehicle projects and do some have involved day to day with the shop. We're a pretty small shop.
I'm Corey Lake. I am the lead of the carbon fiber department. So basically from molds to carbon fiber making and kind of keeping a lid on the shop and kind of hovering over everybody else is what I do. So yeah, carbon fiber, that's pretty much what I do. That's live and breathe carbon fiber. outside of work too, same. So it's kind of a passion for me.
Bill Jakum. I'm head of the fabrication department. I help with design and fabricating on the cars. Also on final assembly, help Russ out and make the list of where we got to go and what we got to do.
Right on. Now, before we get into the specific project, I wanted to kind of dip back a little bit on how did SpeedKore start? This was kind of a passion thing from its owner, wasn't it?
Yeah, about 6 or 7 years ago, Jim Kazmarek has what we call passion projects. SpeedKore was one of those. He's also involved in music. He owns a music label in Nashville, an entertainment business that provides staging and sound equipment in the Milwaukee area. He has SpeedKore for his passion of automobiles. Yeah, he came up with this concept about a little over 6 years ago. And there were some artisans in the area, Bill Jakum being one of them, that he hired and brought in, and they built this brand. And kind of the rest, I would say, is history in a way.
Well, I wanted to touch on that because it seems like the umbrella of kind of this larger group, you guys are afforded just, what's the word I'm looking for? Economy of scale, but like you have the ability to do things most smaller shops, especially ones that just started up, can't do because you have these other businesses that can kind of help you with the metalwork, with the stamping, with composites, things like that.
That's absolutely true. You know, the Kazmarek Enterprises is the umbrella that there's more than 13 companies underneath. Those also involve philanthropic reach. Our resources internally are pretty deep. We have the Capco metal stamping business that allows us, once we have designed frames and metal patterns, that we can export that across the street. And they have lasers that can literally cut the metal that we need to be able to, fab frames and start to build our dreams effectively.
Right on.
Yeah, I mean, it really, really is helpful. There's no question. There's only one aspect of what we do that we really have to use outside vendor services, and that's the trimming of our cars. But we really fit everything, but all the interior work is done by a third party. But otherwise, almost everything we can do in our four walls.
Yeah, that's really unique in the industry, I think, not having to rely on outside sources to get some of these more critical parts done.
Yeah. It's nice. We control the process, right?
Right on. Now, back when this started, Bill, he was saying you were one of the first guys that was brought on. What was attractive to you about coming into this type of environment? Because you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. Basically, Jim had bought another Charger that we did, which was Tantrum. That I was very interested in doing. That had the Mercury engine in it and twin turbo and that's basically, and him, he is a great guy.
That makes all the difference in the world is not only like working for good people, but then working with people who are also, I know the word comes up a lot and I don't want it to lose its meaning, but passion. It's about the passion that you have for doing these things and then finding the right people who are also passionate about the things that they're really good at. And it's really cool to see that when a team gets assembled and the things that they can do, it's really limitless. And like we talked when I visited a few weeks ago, and you said you've been doing this one way or another for 45 years. And it was clear that you still really enjoy the process and really enjoy the work. To me, that's incredible. It's something I really respect.
Yeah, I love building cars, and around here, there's not a lot of top quality shops that do it. And that's the thing. You go out west or down south but I like Wisconsin and this is the place to be. And the group of guys we got are fantastic. I mean, it's like family here.
It shows in the work that you guys put out for sure. Corey, how did you first get into, you said you live and breathe carbon fiber. Like, how did you first get into carbon fiber?
Well, it's a funny story, kind of. So I grew up in this area, a couple cities away. And yeah, I've been racing cars, I started with Mustangs, hated imports. Now I'm kind of driving imports. So, I have a love for everything, but since I was 14, probably when I bought my first car, lightweight and going fast was kind of just in my blood. And I've been a mechanic. I mean, ever since college, graduated high school, was a mechanic for 8, 9 years. And then kind of became confused, I guess you could say, on what I wanted to do with my life. In the mid-20s, didn't know what to do. So I kind of took a step back from being a mechanic and got into fire suppression. And SpeedKore was actually a customer. So I came to do their fire suppression in their paint booth for them. And once I got in the shop, I talked to all the guys around them. Within 2 weeks, I think I put my notice in for my other job. They had an opening for carbon fiber, and I just kind of, it just kind of worked out perfectly. And yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And literally, the people kind of kept me here. That's really what it is.
So did you learn the craft on the job?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of fiberglass work, just kind of for myself and cars and friends in the past. Carbon fiber, zero experience technically when I started. So composites, I had some background, but the level of stuff that I learned here and kind of how I've advanced, I'm still learning every day, which is what keeps composites awesome. Just building cars, you learn from each car, and it's just every car gets better. And so far, Ralph's is the best car in my eyes. I mean, that's just the best car we've built because I have a passion for the 68. I love the 68. Once I heard we were building one for Ralph, it's like, wow, well, perfect. It couldn't have worked out any better. So yeah, I mean, I can talk about carbon fiber and cars, but that's kind of how I kind of fell into SpeedKore, and yeah, I'll be here for life. So
right on. That's awesome to hear. Now, Tom, let's get into this project, because you're a project guy. Like, how did this project, the Hellucination, Ralph's car, how did that come to be?
Gosh, I want to say 2.5 years ago, Ralph had some dialogue around another car, I believe, that he saw we did. I wasn't involved in it at that point, but I know that he saw some of the previous work we had done. And that was pretty influential because Ralph, as you well know, is a visionary and had a real idea and a vision for a 68 that he wanted to do. And so there was some dialogue with management, and he understood what SpeedKore did. And I think he was looking for a builder that could support that vision. That's really where it started. I mean, we found a donor, and he had some concepts, and we liked what he had, and we felt like we could achieve it. It's been an amazing process with him, truly. I mean, and I can go on and on about that, but it's been a lot different working with a gentleman like Ralph. I mean, all of our clients are great people, but he is such a high level enthusiast. And what he does, and you mentioned the word passion. Yeah. This is what, imbues Ralph Gilles. I mean, he is a passionate guy. He's a passionate for Mopar, for the 68, for the vision of it, for the history of it. And it was the biggest challenge we've ever undertaken. No question about it. In a great way, though. We knew what he represented, and we wanted to work with him, and his involvement was just fantastic. We felt like an arm of FCA. We felt like we were part of, a team that was potentially building like an OE car at some level. It was just special thing for us. So,
you nailed it when you talked about how it's like the confluence of all his passions. Like, he loves the 68 Charger. He loves Mopar. He loves design. And this was like, and he loves working with passionate people who are good at what they do. And he's done a ton of project cars. And this one was like, I think this was kind of one of the first ones where he wasn't actually doing, a huge chunk of the work. So there's that trust that has to be there too with the people who are building it. Being with him when he got to first experience the car was such a cool, like at the track. And then when we took it on the road down south, like to see him start to have the car like sort of reach into him and grab him was such a cool thing to see. So one of the questions I got asked, and you kind of answered that to an extent, was how much of an input did he have on the design, and how difficult or different was it to work with somebody who that's what they do for a living? That's what they've done for their entire career. Not only do they do it, but they're probably maybe one of the best all time at doing it. Like, that had to be not just from a fabrication and a conceptual standpoint, but just working at that level had to be a little bit of a challenge.
It certainly was a challenge, but I would say it was no, more of a challenge than it is to work with someone that may not have the skill sets and the knowledge. He knew exactly what he wanted.
Yeah.
That is, for us, that definition and him defining the margins was absolutely great. I mean, it really helped us. And he, like you had mentioned, he does it for a living. And so do we. So we were like,
that's true.
This is cool. Like, okay, like
high level professionals working together.
Absolutely. When we had a question, just as an example, we were working on the A side of the hood for the car. We had to develop the hood scoop, and we did it in mud, and we did it a couple different iterations so you could see it. And we were FaceTiming with phones, walking around this thing with light on it. And we were screenshotting, and he was sending back inked up radiuses and changes. And can you do this? And he knew exactly what he was looking for. Yeah. And it was a special thing, for sure.
I suppose that does make it easier in some extent when you do have somebody who speaks the language, understands the thing inside and out, as opposed to you're trying to guess what he means when he says something. I can see that being a benefit of working with someone like that.
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah. He's such a pro. It's just incredible.
Oh yeah, for sure. Talked about that a little bit when when I was up there a few weeks ago. How certain projects they get like that scope creep in them, and like when you have somebody. You're used to working on a project. He's used to working on projects that are time sensitive or whatever. And so you're not going to get that like halfway down the line. Hey, I've been thinking, let's change this, and this. And then like, plus let's get it done in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So going into the specifics of the build, Bill, what were some of so you guys have built some of these full carbon fiber vehicles before. Were there any unique challenges from a fabrication standpoint to this one compared to other ones? Or was this kind of just like an evolution of the other early Mopars that you've worked on?
No, because being a 68, I mean, we've normally did 70s, and the 68 was, we used the grill, and change it over to the electric headlights and basically, I had a rendering, and to me, the front of the rendering looked more Camaro in the bumper grill, and Ralph had came in that day, and we talked, and I told him what I thought about the rendering and what I wanted to do to keep that Charger look on there. And we perfectly clicked together, and it went well. It was
right on.
Really well. And the best part I liked about Ralph is, we got a lot of clients that are car guys, but they're not mechanically into the cars, and by him walking around and looking at the stuff and us chatting about it, and hey, how'd you do this? What'd you do that? And it was great. It really was.
Right on.
It helped the whole build.
It's one of my favorite things about the Stellantis designers that I'm friends with is they're so used to working so closely with engineers, like whether it's in the wind tunnel or solving other problems, that they have a really good, and then they're all car guys too. So they're wrenching on their cars and working on their cars. They all have a very good eye and for those engineering types of details, for the mechanical details, for things like that. One of the things I really dig, and I know this isn't the first car you've done it with, is the frame. Like originally it's a unibody car, so you're making a steel frame for it, and how you tucked in all the hoses and the lines. Like that was one of the things that we were astonished with when We wanted to pull it up on a hoist when we were on the road just to check some stuff out. And the tech was like, I don't have to do anything special to lift the car up. There's so much clearance. Like by how you were able to tuck everything up into the tube frame was really, was ingenious. It's really incredible.
Yeah, it works out great. I like that. And then hiding all the wires and the hoses and everything else. I mean, you don't see them under the car. They're not in the driver's compartment, and it worked out good. I like it.
No, it's very, very slick.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I didn't know before, going on this trip with Ralph and kind of getting to know the car so well was that, like he was saying, you can't gap carbon fiber. So you have to build the whole thing in steel first. What kind of did you build that like you would be building a steel car?
No, yeah, I do. I build it like it's going to be a steel car. And we end up, using the fenders, welding up the fenders how we needed to tuck the bumpers and get the grill around wrapped real nice in there and the hood fitting. I keep the metal good. That way the body shop and carbon fiber doesn't have a big problem with it. Once you pull it off the car, if the fender ain't fitting right, it's going to be flopping all over the place, and that's going to be your fender in the long run, And so, yeah, I build it like I'm building a steel car.
Right on.
Yeah.
And then the steel panels, when the project's done, the steel panels, like the when you craft the molds from those, it kind of destroys the steel, right?
The thing is, like the quarter panels and the roof, yeah, that because you got to cut them off. You can't do, but the fenders and everything else. I mean, we still got the fenders and everything, and they're perfectly fine. But it's all how Corey preps them to pull the mold off of them. If they're stuck, well, it's going to damage it. And he's pretty good at getting it off of there without wrecking stuff. Sometimes. Sometimes he gets
Right on. Now, how much does 3D scanning come into this project?
So I would say probably 25% of the car, roughly. In this particular case was 3D scanned. That would be, the hood A and B side. And that hood was so special because it was a front hinge hood. So then the fenders, the inner fender aprons, that changed those, and the pockets for those for the hinges. And I think the lower valance on that car to the chin spoiler, that was also scanned. A lot of that stuff is the carbon fiber parts, like the roof and the rear deck lid and things like that. Those were things that we were tooled in. We already had good, significant solid molds from other builds. But when a customer, or a client like Ralph wants to do, a custom hood, obviously that's going to require some blue light scanning, and some engineering development. So
fenders that way, because they basically work off the lines that are there and what's there. Because that hood, basically that was done in CAD in the long run, and then the plug for the mold was made on Renboard. Yeah.
So the way we do it is we take the plug, and I'll actually make my mold out of carbon fiber. So I don't want to give away too much of our secrets.
Gotcha.
To get the best. I mean, if you think of it, you're putting a ton of pressure on these parts inside of a vacuum bag, and then basically cooking it in an easy bake oven that's just massive.
Yeah.
So
right,
you want to make the expansion rate and thermal expansion as close to the same as your material that you're laying in as the mold.
Gotcha.
So I pull the part out, it's going to fit that car.
Yeah.
So that's why. If I can make Bill's life easier, I will. If he can make my life easier, he will. So we work pretty close. I mean, he's in a different department, but even between body shop and fab, we're always kind of, hey, can you do this, or can you cut this off to make this fit? So we're always coming up with better ideas on how to fit and make the panels look really nice. And Bill's already good at that, so if you can make his life easier, it's better for everybody too. So in the long run, less work for everybody. Less headaches, I guess.
Now the carbon fiber, the way that it matches up on the seams is really incredible. Like how big of a task is it to do when you know the car is going to be unpainted? It's just going to be the weave is exposed. Like how much does that add to the prep and the just kind of the, I don't want to say the angst, but like the stress over.
I mean, especially I'd say, I mean, the hood was one thing that was kind of that was a whole special thing just from, I mean, start to finish on the hood on Ralph's car was, I wanted to get that thing perfect just because of the shape of it. You know, that they don't make carbon fiber pre-preg basically wide enough to fit the big thing on that. So you got to think of where the seams go, and just sometimes it takes you a couple tries to get it perfect. And I mean, I beat myself up, you know, on every part pretty much. So I want it to be perfect every time. And if I see a little imperfection, sometimes I'll just throw it away, honestly. But I would say to get the panels perfect it's pretty hard. I mean, you got to really pay attention, a lot of measuring, and just think of how the car would look, you know, and try to seam it where it's not going to catch your eye. And yeah, it takes time, but it's worth it in the long run when everything just kind of flows together. And the quarter panels are probably the hardest, is that's laid up as one big piece from all the way back by the taillight before the quarter extension, and then all the way to the A-pillar. So that's one sheet laid in there. So
I get asked about that big piece a lot. Now, talk to me like I'm an idiot, because I kind of am one, but you guys have that giant autoclave, and kind of explain what that does and what the abilities that gives you guys to form those big parts.
Yeah, so the autoclave, like I said, it's kind of like a big easy bake oven. I mean, it applies pressure, and I can also, you know, put everything in a bag. So I'm also pulling like 30 inches of vacuum on it. So if you know, with surface area, it's going to put some pretty good squish on the part. And what that does is it gives you that aerospace aircraft, you know, composite. So it's squishing at a higher rate other than just being under vacuum wet layup. You're going to have voids. In between laminates, there can be air pockets if you do it that way. The autoclave is going to eliminate that. Also, lightweight. So the way that I've kind of found to make things, I mean, there's all different types of, you know, things to test for with carbon fiber. The flexibility before it breaks, thermal expansion rates like that. I mean, you got stuff under the hood next to turbos, the things get hot. Yep. So you have to post-cure carbon to a certain rate if you know it's going to be under the hood. I mean, there's so many things that go into it. I mean, just so many different aspects you got to think about. What were we talking about?
The autoclave.
Oh, that's right. Exactly.
No, you're good.
The autoclave, right. So the autoclave is going to give you better carbon. It's going to push it into the mold. You're going to have less bridging. The least amount of epoxy content in a composite is going to be your best composite you can get. So any extra epoxy that's in the pre-preg, it's actually going to squish that out, and it's
right on
that, and you're going to get a really nice lightweight and strong composite. So what I found in like Ralph's car is using like a thinner material and more layers actually gives you better. If you have like a longer flat sheet, that flex rigidity is going to be a lot stronger using the thin rather than using like a thicker over a couple layers of thin. So I've kind of done some testing before I did these cars, because I know Ralph is a driver and I'm a race car driver too. So I know that this car is going to get beat. So I wanted to make those as strong as possible and save as much weight. So a lot of testing kind of went into that. And
right on.
The quarter panels were definitely the biggest struggle, and the most testing kind of went into those for me.
The line on line, you know, getting the quarter panels and the lines to line up. We use a piece of equipment called a Zund digital knife cutter. And what Corey will do is he'll take the whole roll of carbon, roll it out, and he will, in this case, the biggest part in the car would be that quarter panel. That'll be that A first layer will be the one that we do our orientation for the majority of the car off of, because it has the most intersecting lines to the rear deck lid, to the bumper, to the fender, to the doors, to the roof. It touches everything else.
So that becomes kind of your pattern as far as that goes.
Yeah, it establishes your pattern. And then what you do is you, by setting that on the Zund digital knife cutter, you nest it so that it uses up that material. Then we can nest the roof. We can nest the fenders and all the corresponding parts so that we're not scrapping a large amount of material and we're achieving the same orientation of weave, the carbon lines, if you will.
Right on.
So from panel to panel, they line up. And that's really critical in the first layer, obviously, because it's the cosmetic layer.
Yeah.
The next ones we can nest on the roll using the digital knife cutter, just so that we can make sure we're not scrapping. We're using the most material in the smartest way possible. If that makes any sense.
Right. Yeah, no, totally makes sense. We do that.
Yeah.
We talked about this before. We kind of do the same thing at my day job on the water jet. You kind of get all the parts together, and then it's almost like a puzzle. Like, the best way to efficiently use all the material.
Yeah.
Like, are there you were talking about thicknesses of layers? Is there kind of like a number of standard thicknesses that are available? Is there like a huge range of thicknesses?
I mean, there is a range, but there's a pretty good standard. I mean, it's like 3K is your thin, is what they call it, and 12K is your thick. That's the main stuff I use. There's a 6, and then you can get into different twills. So if you see like,
do you ever mix and match them?
I actually, for strength, I'll oppose weaves. So first cosmetic layer is going to go one way, and then next layer I'm going to switch it if it's a structural piece.
Right on. Can you also have a thin layer on a thick layer, or do you usually use the same throughout?
You can. Big panels, you don't. I like to keep everything as smooth as possible. Reason being, you can get actual lines in the carbon, or kind of like shadows. Once you put it to the naked eye or the normal person, you're never going to see it.
Gotcha.
I'm going to see it, and it's going to bother me. So
yeah, no, I get it.
You don't want ghost lines coming through, especially when you have an exposed weave car. You want it to look nice in the light,
Yeah.
Especially the sun.
Well, coming back to you, you've got the high strength steel frame, and then the bars are chromoly, right?
Yeah. But
right
40,
on. Very cool.
40 cage. It helps with the weight,
Yep.
The mild steel cage is quite
thicker.
A bit heavier. Yeah. So try to keep them as light as you can. The frame's adding the weight back in, but got to have the strength there to hold the car.
Well, that's one of the things that Ralph, I was stunned with it too, but obviously Ralph is a little bit higher level of a driver. He's a legit race car driver. And one of the things he really wanted was this thing to handle like a Viper. And it sounds a little ridiculous until you get in it and go around the track. And it's like, holy shit, this thing holds the ground. It was, it's incredible how planted. And I've been in a lot of custom cars and one-off cars and builds, and there's always like some squeaks and rattles and a little looseness here or there. Man, right off the trailer, that thing was so steady and so it didn't make any noises it wasn't supposed to. It was one of the most incredible things, and it's solid. It's just a solid vehicle, and that's a testament to the work that you guys have put into it. Not just from that takes everything from conception to execution to, that everything's involved with that. And I can't tell you enough how impressed that we were with that on that trip as far as that goes. That was it's really cool to see. And me being a fabrication guy, I geek out about that stuff, and especially you're doing some of the old school fabrication techniques mixed with the center console. Those switches are all 3D printed, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite a blend, and appreciate those nice words.
Yes.
Because the guys really put in a lot of time and effort into it.
Well deserved.
And we honestly, quality is for us. It is a high standard.
Yeah.
And you and Ralph are, the metric by which we're judged, frankly. Yeah. So, we appreciate that very much.
Definitely.
We want people to drive these cars.
Heck
we
yeah.
expect people to drive these cars.
Yep.
And for you guys to hop in and do a track day and do 15 sessions and have the car up over 140 miles an hour in 95-degree heat and really, really lay on it and get the type of response and feedback was amazing. And then to have, to go out and drive the car 1,500 miles or whatever it was. I mean, that's
Awesome.
incredible.
Yeah.
With the same type of, hitting track days here and there and running the thing up and just driving it.
Yeah.
I mean, our clients typically aren't driving the cars like that. So
Yeah.
the feedback for us it's really important, right?
Yeah, it is. It's really great.
I think we were joking, like right off the top. I think I probably already got more miles in that build than most of those builds did.
Say it every day.
Like he let me in the driver's seat, and he was gonna. Anytime he wanted to drive, he had to pull me out. That was quite the experience. It was a lot of fun.
The car's coming back to us because we want to look at it before it goes out to the Quail, where it'll be on display. And so we're excited to see it.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it in a while. So again, it's a learning experience for us. So we're over the moon to be able to see how things are, what mileage looks like on one of these cars.
Yeah, deep down.
How rad is it that it's going to have, I mean, it's going to Quail to show, and it's going to have, a few thousand miles on it. I can't imagine that most of the cars that get shown there have that kind of usage at that point.
No, I mean, I think it's a great story though.
Yeah.
I mean,
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
So rad.
Nice dust on the wheels and the little rubber on the quarter panels.
Well, he was very can't do any burnouts, but he also told me that when the time comes to do a massive burnout in the car, that he's going to bring me in to do the honors. So I'm going to hold him to that for sure.
You're a demon.
Oh my gosh.
Right? You got this figured out.
Yeah, if there's one thing I know how to do, it's waste tires. So one of the questions that I've been asked is, you're doing these big builds, these full car builds, are any of these parts going to be available for people that are working on their 68 Charger or their 70 Challenger, things like that?
The answer is yeah, absolutely. The front clip really won't fit, you'd have to, let me think about that.
No, you could make it fit.
Yeah. A front hinge hood is that's pretty involved for most people to change that. But the bumpers, the lower valance, the rear deck lid, all those things are available. I mean, it just requires an email to SpeedKore.
Yeah.
And
right on.
We can build them.
Very cool.
In the past, it wasn't that way, Josh. And I'm glad you asked the question because we would build cars so one-off. There really wasn't, and then the original donor car may not have been that straight or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But the parts you couldn't necessarily, in good faith, sell to anybody because we could make them look beautiful and they fit the car great, but it wasn't something that was repeatable enough to be able to sell to the consumer.
They fit that specific car right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we've changed that mantra over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And so actually in the middle of August, we're launching a new website and you'll be able to see our components. You'll be able to purchase them there. And those are all to fit. Obviously, these are, in some cases, people are body working quarters or fenders, to fit certain components, but that's noted there. These will fit, and we know that with just a minimal amount of body work, you're there. So
right on. SpeedKore is a relatively new company, yet they've already made a huge name for themselves. Where do you see what you guys are doing? Where do you see it going in the next 3 to 5 years?
I have a vision. I think I share the same one with these guys. We want to continue building world-class pro touring cars, period. That is what these guys are here to do. That's what they want to do. Go back to that term passion. You have to maintain the passion. It has to be what we want to do. We will grow our composites business. There's no doubt in my mind, with examples like we just talked about, where you're building, a pro touring car, but at the same time, you're keeping, you're cognizant of the components you're making will be available for other end consumers or pony builders, right? Want to be able to provide those things. We also are growing the composite business in the marine sector. Mercury Racing is a big customer of ours. We do a lot of R&D work with them. We do things with cigarette racing.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're not high volume clients. They're low volume, high quality. And that's kind of the pinnacle and the arenas we want to be in. There's a couple other things that'll be coming soon that we're going to announce probably by the end of the year. A couple other facets of the business that can be pretty exciting. So
right on.
Happy to share that with you when we're there. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's
Can't
cars
wait.
and composites, really. I mean, that's it. That's what we're doing.
Cars, composites, and fast boats. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, it was cool hanging out with you guys at the track. It was such a great day. And then being able to swing by kind of last minute a couple weeks ago and talking to a few guys in the shop, and just like you could see there's this positive energy around everything. And the fact that you guys are so excited that we drove it like we drove it, clear that you guys share that same intense passion for what you do as I do for what I do, that Ralph does with what he does. And it's just something you can't fake. And it's something that I truly appreciate. I thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk to me, even to, last minute, give me a little quick tour of the shop time. It means a lot to me. And it's great talking to you guys. And I cannot wait to see what the future holds for you three and for SpeedKore as a whole. It's going to be pretty rad.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And,
Yeah.
your door's always open. Man. You got to come in the back door though. You can't come in the front.
I can do that.
You got to come in through the back door. Welders and mechanics only through there.
Again, congratulations on the build. You guys did an incredible job. Coming from someone I think I've driven it like 1,200 miles. It's an outstanding vehicle. It's incredible. And you guys should be very, very proud of what you achieved with that vehicle. And I know Ralph is over the moon with it.
Just hope Ralph likes it and he's enjoying it. I'm always driving it, so I'm glad to see finally, someone's driving the hell out of these cars that we're building.
It's going to be a love affair for a very long time. And it feels like an extension of my soul because it embodies things I've loved since I was 5 years old, about the design, number one, the spirit of the car, number two, the fact that in my mind it's the quintessential Mopar.
Yeah, we think Ralph likes the car. And as Tom mentioned, just a few short weeks after this interview, the car was buttoned up and made its way to the West Coast to be featured at the prestigious Quail event in Monterey, California. Somehow, I was lucky enough to be invited and even got to drive Hellucination around some California highways. Yeah, that's me in the pink seersucker jacket. My experience with this car has been wild, and I'm grateful for the opportunities they have had surrounding it. I want to thank Ralph and Doris Gilles for sharing part of this awesome adventure with me. If you want to check out more of what SpeedKore builds and what components you can purchase for your builds, check out their website at www.speedkore.com. And again, thank you to SpeedKore, especially to Tom Porter, Bill Jakum, and Corey Lake for sharing about the fabrication side of Hellucination. With a car like that, you don't want a big keychain. You want just like a little, something little. So I made a little titanium keychain that just says CF68, which is his license plate. And when I gave it to him, he's like, "Oh, you made me a keychain." I'm like, "No, I made it for Hellucination." It's like, fair enough.